record. So
Good. Yeah.
good.
So we will
So
record for him in case he can't come, who was speaking
yes.
about him.
So let me repeat that.
But yeah, 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 yeah.
So that it's on the record. Um, he needs to consider him as an athlete, and if he wants to keep that kind of performance up, and if he wants to make that last. um, I did Google him. I know how old he is. It's not old. Okay.
Not old. You're saying
But
that's not old.
no, like
Yeah.
if Google's right, then he's 31. That's
Yes, that's
not
right.
old. However, it definitely, there is a different capability of the body to recover than when we're like in our 20s. Okay. And I speak
Yeah.
from total experience because I am a singer and I am a triathlete. So this whole like endurance stuff is nothing new to me. And I work with both athletes and singers, and I'm very happy to every now and then get a singer who's also an athlete. So
Yeah. So you're saying Barnes should consider himself an athlete,
yes.
and that involves, a way of life where possible. So back on in 2019, I was helping him through that tour season, and he's really, really conscious of, wanting to take care of his voice and body. He's not like, Amy Winehouse type of thing
Right.
where it's just like a car crash. However, there is like just being realistic. There were a lot of times where it's a lot of partying after the gigs, and being with the crew and everything, that it's kind of hard to avoid a lot of that. I mean, he doesn't smoke. He knows about trying to get good rest. He doesn't like take drugs or anything. So that's good, but there is that being in the environment. I think there's obviously there's a lot of drinking that can go on these tours and everything, and so, and just the intensity of it, of um he seemed so tired when I was helping him on that 2019 tour, and
Right.
he's like having a really good time, but it was just the intensity of having to be so there during the gigs, and then it's like a really late night, and then it's the next day or a couple of days, and then being in, I think what I found was it was like being in a new place every single time, and being on the road, not having a base. I just found that he was quite tired and drained from all of that.
Of course. And this is where now, there will, I mean, at a certain point, he will have to set priorities,
Mm,
boundaries, priorities, and because it's what you just described, it's great that he doesn't smoke and that he doesn't do drugs and stuff.
yeah,
But if we just look at the body and what the body needs, then not smoking and not doing drugs is kind of like that should be just the normal bare minimum.
right.
So yeah, I'm super happy that he doesn't go on the other side. Okay. So that he doesn't do that. That's great. But it's not enough. Like he will have to take care of how he eats, if he hydrates enough, especially if he drinks alcohol, which I understand it's something, there's the whole social aspect of touring.
Mm,
But again, if we look at um if we look at great artists and what kind of road they went down, if it went down a good way or a bad way, a lot depends on the boundaries that you set, and that you just say, okay, look guys, I'm sorry, I'm tired, I have to look out for myself. And I think that we are in a time and age where this will become more and more normal, because we are already so much more conscious that like drugs are bad. And and let's face it, in the 70s and 80s, maybe in 90s, then we had like synthetic drugs and all this. This is what kept all of those musicians going. But what's the end of it? So if we want to sustain a lifestyle that already in itself, like you said, like the changing of the traveling, the time zone differences, if you
yeah.
travel over its time zones, traveling by plane, traveling on a bus, this already is very stressful for our body. And so if we want our body to function for us on stage,
Yeah.
and we don't want to revert to any kind of substances to kind of keep that going, but we know that this is not sustainable on the long run, then we have to concede certain things to our body. It's our partner, and we have to. And this is, I think this is really the basic. And this is where, you know, as a, like, athletes have the same thing. They travel, they have meets. Okay, there are some who do doping. There used to be more. There's a lot less now because there's a lot of education on this. Like, we have to do trainings and everything. And it's so important. Like, what do you put into your body? Check your fitness level, you know, get tested for VO2 max, VCO2 max. You know, as an athlete, you need to know what's going on inside your body so that you can react and counteract to when something's going, you know, in not the best direction as quickly as possible.
Yeah, because it happens really quick, doesn't it? When you just get
Well,
run down, and then you got a next show, and then a next show, and then you're out late at night.
but it doesn't really happen very quick, you know. It's just that once you reached a point where your body can't do it anymore, then it seems like it's very quick, but actually it's
It
a
has been
process.
leading up. Yeah, that makes sense.
And we want to basically not even get into that, especially if now for 2 years he hasn't toured, and now he's going into this big tour. He needs to see his body as something that's worthy, you know, of boundaries and of good food and of sleep,
Yeah,
and of, you know,
yeah.
because it is what's going to help him do what he wants to do. Without his body, he can't do it. Even though I have seen a recording of him like performing with a broken leg.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. Oh, oh, he's
So
so
kudos to
giving.
you, Barnes, but
Oh my gosh, he's so giving to his fans, and I think that's part of
yeah,
the boundary thing that we've discussed, and I'm hearing you say that this maybe needs to be a part of it. And I will say he has turned vegan. I mean, so he
yeah,
you know, and with being 31 comes a maturity and an understanding of this, which you know, he is developed, and I really sense this like direction and drive and maturity now, which is fantastic. He will take on board what you say, but he's already part of the way there. But I think what I'm hearing you say is it's like he needs to turn on his inner diva in a way for his body and for his
yeah.
health. Like, I
And
need this, I need that place in the tour bus or whatever to sleep.
and you know, this kind of seeing people who kind of make their boundaries clear as
Mhm.
divas is actually so toxic.
Right.
And I remember, you know, when I was still singing opera full time, you know, you would look at the girls or the singers who were setting boundaries, and you'd be like, she thinks she's so much better. But actually, that's not what it is. It is like they know their body, they know they want to perform at their best, they
Yeah.
want to give what they can to their fans. And that just means that they have to take care of themselves, and they have to set those boundaries. And nobody is entitled, you know, to kind of more of like a bigger chunk of you than you can give them, because it's just not possible.
Yeah.
So it's just, you know, that's just the basic um thing that I would tell him. And yeah, to
Okay.
maybe work with a nutritionist, especially if he's vegan. He
Yes.
needs to get enough protein. Like, this is so important.
Oh,
And
yeah. Okay.
so important. Like, his body needs all of the macros. And veganism can work out, but you need to know how to do it so that you're not deficient in something.
And macros being protein, carbs, and
And fats.
protein, carbs, and fats. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good take on it, that he needs to watch that. Can you go back up for a moment and tell us more about testing for VO2 max and VCO2 max?
Yes. So this is what I, for example, do with the athletes that I work with. So I have a device that basically analyzes your breath, and it analyzes exactly how your metabolism works. So it will tell you exactly in like 45 minutes of activity how many calories does your body burn. Okay. And if you are burning this in an aerobic way, anaerobic way, how your body is basically how your body is using fuel to produce energy.
Mm-hmm.
And in the UK, I can try to find out for you where there are some people who use the same device as I do. For the rest, you can just you can find VO2 max testing by just Googling it around you. Usually this is something that you would find in like faculties of sport and this kind of
Mm-hmm.
environments.
Okay.
And what for him is especially important is that whoever tests him, and this is where it's sometimes it's a bit tricky because not everybody does, but he needs to be then checked also for mechanics, breath mechanics, and how breath frequency, breath mechanics, and how efficiently he is using oxygen.
Yeah. And how do you test for that?
Well, it usually what happens is that they will put you on a treadmill.
Uh-huh.
So it's like basically they give you a mask in which where you have to breathe with a mask, and then
Mhm.
because this is where the sensor is, and
Yeah.
then they put you in a treadmill and you have to do certain intervals. It will be like growing intensity until you go all out. So you basically go to your maximum. So they also
Mm-hmm.
know exactly your heart rate. They can find out if there are any issues with your heart, anything that needs to be worked on. And then usually if you work with somebody like this, they will also tell you for where you're at, what kind of training you need to be doing. If you need to be doing resistance training to build muscle mass, if you need to do interval trainings, if you need to do cardio, and in what ratio you need to do that. It's such a pity that I'm so far away because I would love to do that. But
Oh, yeah. That would be such a good thing for you to set up for people like they would need to have the equipment, I suppose, if you're
of course,
online. Yeah.
yes, you need the equipment, and you need to have all of that.
Okay. Okay.
So
So, yeah, maybe if you had an idea of places in London, um,
I can check if I find somebody in that network of the same like device that I use. If there's somebody in London, I can try to find that out.
and then that's where he's going to be like now for the foreseeable little future, but then he's going to be going back to LA. So that's where he's mainly based. So
Okay.
it's like
Okay.
London
In
and
in
LA.
America, it shouldn't be a problem to find somebody who does this kind of testing. However, we need there. I mean, this is just a little bit delicate because, of course, he is not an athlete who needs to train for, he also needs to be careful about his voice and all of those things. So I mean, it's going to be really hard to find somebody who is both a singer and also does this kind of thing. But
Mm,
I will try to do my best. I will try to find somebody in London. And maybe what can be done is that then if he goes to be tested and he has the results, that then we can discuss that and we can put that into perspective with, again, the singing and the type of activity that is stage performance, which is not exactly the same as performing as any kind of other sports, even though it's very, very similar, right? It's,
yeah. Yeah, interesting. It's different though, isn't it? Because
yeah,
when you're vocalizing in that state, it's just a different kettle of fish. It's then just it's really
yes.
difficult, isn't it? Because I did his little workout with him the other day because I wanted to feel what he is feeling. So he at the moment he's using like an online hit training that gets the cardio up really fast, and he's working up to 30 minutes with that just general fitness training, so
Okay.
that because this support slot on Saturday is 30 minutes, so he's almost there, working up to that, but it's so different when you put your voice on top of it.
and also it's very different because the emotion of it is different. Then what, as an athlete you don't do ever is, while you're being super active and stuff, you are actually engaging with your public and with other people. As an athlete you can be completely like in your bubble, in your world. um if you do any sort of like endurance races or something, you kind of just go, you think your thoughts, it's not the same when you're performing. You have all of this, but you also have to communicate with the outside world. You have to get the emotion from people, give them emotion. And this is just such an additional challenge, because also physiologically what happens inside the body, of course, also depends on what kind of emotions you get. It's for a singer, there's a huge difference even in having a public that is like super collaborative, and they're clapping and screaming and you feel like whoa, and this gives you so much adrenaline. And then maybe you have once a public that doesn't do that, and so you're kind of constantly asking yourself what you're doing wrong, and so you're in a completely different state of mind, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we can definitely stay in touch for this and see how testing could work out for him. Because yes, of course it's great that he does like some training, if it's online. Yeah, I mean, anything's better than nothing, I guess, at this point. But I think if he has to go on this big tour, then after, he needs to set this up in a little bit more of like structured
Structured way.
way.
Yeah, yeah. That's
So that
that's interesting.
and maybe with somebody who knows what exactly he needs to do, and because yeah, if not, it's kind of like a lottery. It's like, okay, I can do 30 minutes of that, but in my like living room when I work online, I can't count in all of the like different interactions and everything that can happen. And so yeah, I
Hmm.
mean,
Okay.
great to go back out there and test it out and see what's going on, and then start like a more structured approach for building physical fitness. And there, something that I noticed on the recording that you sent me.
Yeah.
So he very often also plays the guitar when he is singing,
Hmm.
and his neck and shoulder muscles are quite active in all of this. So, and this is normal, right? So, of course, when you play the guitar, you have all of those muscles that need to perform certain tasks for you. When you raise your arms, you hold the microphone, all of this will recruit certain muscles groups here in your neck, shoulder area, pectoral area. Those muscles, and we need to really know this and have that concept, those muscles are also secondary muscles of respiration.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So those are muscles that perform double tasks.
Uh-huh.
And and especially when we're singing, we would like to not breathe with those muscles as much as possible. Okay. So we really need to dissociate the primary muscles of respiration from the secondary muscles of respiration. So they're really, um, it would be great for him to work on that dissociation, because I've also seen some clips of him when he's not moving around so much. I don't know if that was from the same year. That might be a little longer ago, but like radio shows and stuff. And it
Mm-hmm.
seems
Yeah.
like he's very nice and calm. And maybe that's also due to your wonderful teaching. So it's nice and calm. And so we need to somehow figure out how he can keep his breathing
Yeah.
here, you know, so that those muscles right here are free for moving,
Okay.
and so that it doesn't get mixed up. Because
Yeah.
if once he starts to breathe with those muscles, once the body starts to recruit those muscles for
Yeah.
breathing,
Yeah. Yeah.
the body's in like the brain there goes into a bit of a dilemma, because
Yeah.
breathing is what's most important for the body. Because at the end of the day, your brain doesn't really care about your success or the race or the result or whatever. It cares about survival. And so when the brain starts feeling like you kind of getting into a state where you start to recruit those secondary muscles of respiration for actual breathing, then we are in, then we're in really a challenge, because if you still need to perform other tasks with the same muscles, it's gonna clash. And I'm not saying that this is not possible. It's possible for short amounts of time,
Yeah.
but you need to then absolutely work on regeneration after. You need to, absolutely make sure that once this moment is over,
Mm-hmm.
you need to get back. You need to get back to dissociating the two.
Yep.
And
And
maybe after the concert, really make sure, that you release any tension that has built up in the neck muscles, in the shoulder muscles, the intercostals, and kind of just maybe have a little ritual or like a
yeah.
routine of what, like, to check in with your body and
Mm-hmm.
see what it needs at that point, because not
Yeah,
every show is the same.
that's right.
But to have like a little 5 to 10 minute checkup and see, and maybe then decide based on that checkup if tonight is a night when I feel like I can go party with the crew, or tonight is maybe it's better for me to stay in to, take care of my body and just kind of let it regenerate. Because
Okay.
that is it. Like, for athletes, it's something that's completely clear and normal, like regeneration, so important. For singers, it's not.
And how will he know? How will he know that he needs a moment of not going out? What will be the signs?
Yeah, well, this is a bit more tricky to work on online, right? But he needs to really become aware of certain muscles, so he can go through a little bit of, I don't know if you already do that with him, like self massage.
Yeah, yeah,
He can, like, a self laryngeal massage, testing intercostals, like going in between the ribs, with your fingers, just kind of like testing how much of a toll what he just did took on his body, right?
Mhm.
um it might be, I mean, this is just, but it might be interesting for him when he's, for example, when he's doing rehearsals, when he has like rehearsals where he's already maybe jumping around and testing things out, to wear some kind of a smartwatch and also a heart rate um,
Yeah,
a belt. Those are the belts that you would have right
yeah.
here,
Mm.
um just in order to then, like, know, okay, where did I go with my heart rate. And for example, the smartwatch will tell you to a certain extent how many hours of regeneration you need after this kind of activity.
Mm.
Okay, so
Is that an app on the watch?
yeah, it depends on what kind of watch I mean, I have a Garmin, so I cannot speak to all other kinds of watch. Like, I'm sure that an Apple smartwatch, or a Samsung smartwatch, or um, I have to be honest with you, I don't know much about other watches than my own.
Okay, Garmin.
but
Yeah.
but something like this, a system that helps you understand what went on, especially if you're mm, in this kind of huge adrenaline kind of, you have this adrenaline, you feel like you're invincible on stage and you could
Yeah.
go on and on and on and on and on,
Yes.
but your body at a certain point just crashes, and you would
Yes.
like to prevent the crash.
That's exactly what he's described. So it's like the show is no problem because you get this surge, and I just wanted to back up a moment and just let you know that he's a real showman who cares so much about his fans, and his fans absolutely love him. So he wants to give, and he wants to respond to the crowd, and that's why in some shows he's extremely active, but he doesn't want to be thinking about what he needs to do. He wants to do whatever he needs to be with his
Of course,
crowd and his music. He doesn't want to be thinking about,
of
okay, this
course,
is how I need to be breathing. But
of
so
course.
how would we incorporate that awareness beforehand and practice?
Yes. it's going to be a lot of like investing in creating automatisms, you know, that he, so that he doesn't need to think about it, but he gets to the end of the show and he's like, oh, okay, I'm fine, because he's actually invested in this before.
Yeah. And when you said so disassociate the breathing from these secondary muscles,
Yes.
does he do that by breathing, down
Yeah.
here?
Yeah, he needs to really work on the kind of awareness of getting his diaphragm to really like do as much as it can. And it can do a lot, you know, like I working with athletes and also seeing it on myself,
Uh-huh.
you can, I mean, it is totally possible to get up to a heart rate of 160, 170 and not recruit those muscles for breathing.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Because once you start doing that, you start to and then it's the extrinsic muscles,
Exactly.
the larynx,
Sure. Of course. All those muscles, I mean, the scalenes, the sternocleidomastoids, those are so close to the larynx that, of course, it's going to have also an impact on, you know, just how efficiently your voice can work.
Okay.
And it's going to have a huge impact on the pressure management, you know, on everything that happens below, like
Yeah.
how your body deals with the subglottic pressure.
Yes.
And
Yes.
um, so
Should
this, I think, is really something that he needs to really kind of first maybe gain awareness of how that feels, you know, how does it feel to like really move your ribs, move your ribs, not your rib cage. So when I say move your ribs, I mean really moving the individual ribs in their joints. So this is like, if I move my ribs, my breathing is going to look something like this, right? Inhale, exhale. So it's going to be all around here. My upper ribs will also do it, but to just a much smaller extent, because there's
uh-huh.
just a lot, they're just a lot smaller. But so I really want to move my ribs like I'm moving my fingers right now, instead of
Mhm.
doing this, right?
Yeah.
Because once I'm in this kind of position, the problem is that we are highly depending on our exhales when we sing, right? And this maybe for an actual athlete is not such a problem, because you know they just kind of, it is a problem, but they don't realize it so much.
Yeah.
You know, they just have to get the air in, and they feel it's so much more important to get the air in. Not true, but that's how they feel. For
Hmm.
us as singers, we realize that it's, you know, it's get the air in, but then sustain, and then like let the air out again, but like slowly, you know, because our vocal folds are going to create that restriction. So if we are kind of getting tighter here, and if our neck muscles tense up, and then our rib cage cannot participate in absorbing pressure, in kind of dealing with pressure in the same way, than if everything here is nice and flexible, right?
Hmm.
And that means,
Question.
yes.
Should the breathing be fast or slow when the heart rate is so high? Because we just associate it with being fast.
Well, your heart rate and your breathing is going to definitely become faster when your heart rate goes up. But again, here this is a big difference between singing and any kind of athletics, because we don't have the possibility of letting out the air like quickly, right?
Exactly.
We don't have that. It's maybe mostly, you could maybe compare it to swimming if you want, because you know you have like this quick inhale, and then your head is underwater, so you don't have any possibility of inhaling, right? You need to kind of stretch that a little bit.
Yeah.
um so something that can, yeah, if he wants to do a sport that is kind of well connected with this, swimming is actually great, because yeah, you do have like the quick inhale. And what you can do underwater, which I do regularly and I love it, is that for an exhale, when you swim, instead of just exhaling, you hum. So you basically, you have a quick inhale, and then you do mm,
That's
into the
amazing.
water while swimming. And it's great, you know, also why? Because you are moving your arms, which in other sports maybe you're not. So you are using those muscles for a different purpose than just breathing. And also the water pressure around you, well, basically there's like slightly higher pressure, of course, underwater than if you're just in air. And so this is going to help your diaphragm if you're using it correctly. If there's a good coordination between diaphragm and intercostals, then it's going to help build up your diaphragm. So swimming is definitely something that I would absolutely recommend.
That is such a great tip. Oh my gosh. I think that would really help. And also because he's trying to find these moments of how he can get his fitness up in these locations that he's at. So he's,
Sure.
staying in a hotel at the moment. So he's in his little hotel room trying to do that hit. But if he could stay in a hotel with a pool, then he could really do this. And what a great tip about the humming.
Yeah.
When I
Yeah.
tried it
And
with him, I
oh yeah.
tried his workout and I wanted to see what it felt like. And we did the workout together. We got our heart rates up really high and then we tried vocalizing.
Sure.
And yeah, it was tricky because yeah, like you say, it was just like because there's a sense of control that comes when you vocalize and it's
Sure.
really hard when you're like your heart is pounding and you're trying to get the air in fast. So it's
Yes.
just a case of building that fitness and that awareness of dissociating the upper.
Yes. I don't know if I would go like super high with a heart rate.
Okay.
I'm not sure that this makes so much sense. I would rather go into like an easy cardio kind of like rather build, you know, build around, well, I don't know what his like maximum heart rate and stuff is, but like stay around like a zone 3 to 4,
Mm-hmm.
which means you are still able to say words or a sentence even if you didn't want to sing, right?
Yeah.
So don't try to like push your body, especially not like in the beginning. Don't try to like push your body to like a super high and then try to add something, but like build it up. It's a process, you know, build it
Right.
up slowly. Because, and here we get to yet another thing that he needs to take into consideration, and that is his physiology. So um, our bodies basically have chemoreceptors that measure how much CO2 is in our blood at any moment in time. Okay. And it's basically that CO2 that is going to trigger, or the like this level of CO2 is going to trigger our breathing,
Mm-hmm.
not any kind of oxygen. Okay. Our body basically doesn't care about oxygen. Oxygen kind of, there's enough oxygen around us. It doesn't care so much about that. Our body cares about CO2 because our body itself kind of builds up that CO2 depending on how much we move. And so, depending on how much blood there is, the body will kind of pump up the heart rate and the breath frequency and all of those things. And so, this level of CO2 in our blood at which our body kind of sounds the alarm and says that we need to breathe, this is called the CO2 tolerance in our body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that we can work, it's something that we can train. So we can basically increase that tolerance for CO2, of course, within a certain, like within a certain limit, okay? Because it physiologically, like the pH value of our body, there's a very small window of how much we can go alkaline or how much we can go acidic before it becomes really dangerous for our body. But there is this little bit of possibility to work on how much CO2 our body can tolerate. And the more CO2 our body can tolerate, the slower we can breathe before, you know, we're going to get like into some sort of hyperventilation.
Yeah.
And the longer we can sustain a sound, because the longer it means that, you know, even if we are in like a higher intensity, we are going to be able our body is not going to like sound the alarm so quickly. So we're going to be able to exhale, even sustaining a sound for a longer amount of time. Okay. So the thing is, you know, when we're singing, breathing does not only serve this one purpose of keeping us alive, but of course it also serves the purpose of creating this stability of pressures. And so those two things, like the stability of pressure, which is a purely mechanical thing if you want, and the physiological activity of breathing or respiration, we need to somehow try to, you know, bring them together. And this basically will include working on improving his tolerance to CO2.
And how do you do that?
He will not automatically get that from just doing like a high intensity interval training workout. So I will send you a link for that, because
Okay.
I have some friends in the States who actually created like a calculator and a test for that. And so I will send you the link for this, where he can test his CO2 tolerance, and then he can kind of enter the result into that calculator and do exercises for that. Again, if you have, or he has any questions about this, I'm very, very happy to help, because it can be sometimes like a bit overwhelming, all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And I think time, you know, is we need someone to be like, okay, do this.
Yeah, do this.
Oh, okay. Well, this has been so helpful. I've gotten so much information that I can take to him, and yeah, I'll let him watch this as well, which will be really insightful. Yeah, really good. Thank you so much.
If he wants to like have like some tips on like rib mobility and all of this, I have a lot of videos on my Instagram, so he can check my Instagram. He can watch the videos. They're pretty short, and there's a lot of stuff on rib mobility and how to help
Yeah.
yourself.
No, that's really great. I've got some excellent tips from, and I'll look them up as well. Cool.
Good. I'll try to find somebody in London who uses this device that we could then somehow maybe collaborate or work together.
Yeah, that would be amazing.